sound speeds. And the actual Banjo Scott has sent me a video to react to. Okay, he didn't actually send this to me to react to. He sent this to me to watch. I asked if I should react to it, and he says he hadn't watched it. He just sent it to me. So I'm going to react to it and pretend that he did ask me to do it. So let's get right into it. And here we go.
Hey guys.
Pause. And this video is called How to Hide a Lavalier Microphone in Your Videos. And it was released on May 13, 2024. And as of the time of this video has 5,250 views even and has 279 upvotes. Oh, I forgot. I can't like it because I am in incognito mode. So we're going to maximize this and jump right into our reaction and see what they do in this video.
Here. Today I'm going to show you some clever ways to hide your wireless microphone, whether you're using a transmitter or a lavalier mic.
She's going to show us how to hide a lavalier microphone, whether we're using a transmitter or a lavalier mic. Did I just hear that right? Going to show us how to hide a lavalier mic if we're using a lavalier mic or if we're using it. I guess I'm assuming that means we're going to be hiding a lav mic and showing you how to hide a transmitter also. We'll see.
When you're shooting content with a wireless mic, there might be times when you want it out of sight.
As a matter of fact, you almost always want it to be out of sight. And why? Because it doesn't add anything to your picture. Doesn't add anything to your shot. Now, sure, I understand clipping on a little microphone or something like that on the outside, but the transmitter itself should be hidden. As a matter of fact, you should also record anytime you're doing content creation as opposed to transmitting. It's a lot better for the actual signal to noise ratio and the quality of your recording. Just a little opinionated ad.
Either to keep the focus on your content or to add some realism to your shots.
Oh, okay. Hide it to add realism to the shots. I thought she was saying, never mind.
While there are some benefits to this, remember that wireless mics perform best when they're not covered up or brushing up against anything that could create noise.
100% correct. You would like to have a lavalier microphone free and open without wind protection on it the way it was engineered to be. But most of the time, there's a little bit of wind that comes from just the room itself. As a matter of fact, we boom operators, we understand that air pressure in the room can actually affect the diaphragm of a microphone and can sometimes, if the air is on too much in a different room even, then it can actually affect the pressure of the microphone and cause low-end rumbles. Now, if you're talking about a lavalier microphone, you're probably not going to hear that. But one thing that you might actually run into with the lav mic is breathing directly onto it, and that's not uncommon. As a matter of fact, if you watch this channel for a while, you've probably seen me, even though my nose points, wind outwards. If a microphone is right here on the sweet spot of my chest, I will still sometimes blow air on it because I'll be looking down and just not paying attention. It does happen.
Noise. So consider whether you need to hide it completely. For example, you could match your outfit to the mic's color like I have here.
That's exactly right. Also, if you want to make something look very low profile, you can hide it, but you can also make it blend in. As a matter of fact, a lot of the times you see those shirts that have some sort of printing and design on it. There's a lavalier microphone hidden underneath that in a movie or television show, provided that the actual print on top of it itself, it feels like the shirt. If it feels like something that was printed on it and it's like a plasticky type feeling, we can't hide underneath that. But we will quite often hide underneath the design of one of those shirts because you won't see it. You'll be distracted by the lines. Even though you can still sometimes see the lav, if it's still not hidden properly, you're not going to notice it nearly as much behind those designs.
If you're using the transmitter, clip it somewhere subtle, like along the neckline of
Oh no! I was hoping this was going to be a flawless video. Okay, I know why she did this. It's because that transmitter, that thing right there, is a microphone. I am not a huge fan of using these big clunk things right there. These things are clunky. They're big. At least she took off the windscreen on it. It usually has that big puffy windscreen that usually doesn't match in color, depending on the manufacturer of the actual transmitter. Sometimes they're completely contrasting colors. So it'll be like a gray fur, a white fur, something like that goes along with a black transmitter. But in the Rode situation here, she's wearing it because it is a microphone and a transmitter. I'm not a fan of these things, though. I personally think that it serves a purpose, but it's extremely annoying. She's talking about wanting it to blend in with an outfit. Then don't use one of these things. Use, like she was using before, the lavalier microphone is going to be a much better bet. Wearing a transmitter like this It's obtrusive. Yeah, look right here. Blue light, red light, green light. That's not going to blend into anything. Even if she was in the dark, it would not blend in. Don't use these things if you can absolutely help it. Don't do it at all. Don't even put it on the stick with the wind protection. I mean, if you're going to use it as a stick mic or something like that, sure, go for it. Then do that. At least those lights are going to be covered up. But still, I'm not a fan.
Of a sweater, or clip it on backwards so that only the clip is visible.
And the clip, by the way, says Rode on it. So still nice advertisement. Because if you notice, Rode puts 0 Wireless Pro and then Rode on the back.
Sweater.
So you're always going to see the Rode ad. It seems to be a modern trend for manufacturers to put their own branding on there, even though Rode does have enough sense to make it not white. That's good. Some manufacturers will put those things obtrusively in contrasting colors. Now, her point about turning it inwards, that's a good idea to make it a little bit more low profile. But normally we only do that on transmitters that we wear on the belts. And the reason why is because that will actually make it stick out less from the body. So in the motion picture industry, the reason why you would want to turn it inwards as opposed to facing outwards is because if someone hit a transmitter or sits down, it's going to actually angle outwards. And the transmitter is going to point outwards, poking the antenna out. So by doing this and by putting it on the inside, when someone sits down, it's going to actually push into the actor's back. So the actor may be uncomfortable from it, especially with the connector sticking out of it, but we are not concerned with the actors and their comfort level during a shot, are we? Of course we are, in all honesty. But, that's one of the things, the advantages of using something like that is that it is facing inwards. But if you do, to my point right there, you might want to put it inside of something so that way it doesn't hurt the actors. Because if it is uncomfortable or something like that, it starts to distract the actors. They may say, I don't want to wear a lav. They may say, I don't want to wear this thing. Can I put it next to me or something like that? So it is a very common thing for you to be aware of that actors can actually feel uncomfortable from a connector or an antenna sticking out. So pat it, baffle it, something like that. So that way it's also not touching the body, which if they're sweating at all, that can also affect your wireless microphone. If there's metal on it, it can cause not necessarily a short, but what it can do is cause the transmit power to diminish a little bit, and it can also start to corrode over the course of time.
So that only the clip is visible. You could even use a magnetic clip like the Rode MagClip Go with only the magnet side visible.
And if you do something like that, which I think is actually probably the best of all worlds, the disadvantage of using this is that you're, again, putting underneath clothing. If you're doing that, might as well go back to the lav mic or just use the whole entire thing. She could clip it onto the front of her bra if she wanted to. Females have that ability. Now, if you do use something like this, there's nothing that says you can't put a sticker. Put a sticker on here. Since Bandrew hates stickers, it would be a great thing for Bandrew to keep a sticker around for. So that way, if he were to have something like this, it could be a sticker that goes right over the front that says, Bandrew says podcast or podcastage, or just put the white SoundSpeeds logo directly on top of it. That would be awesome.
If you're using a lavalier mic, try the broadcast loop and then tuck the cable under your clothing.
Okay, the broadcast loop that she's talking about, let me go back here and show it once. She's referring to this as broadcast loop, and I've never heard it referred to as that. We just basically loop it up through there. I mean, it makes sense to be called a broadcast loop. I've never personally heard that. I've just always heard of it as stream relieving through just looping it over. But I mean, if it's called broadcast loop, it's called broadcast loop. There's a couple of things to note here. Number one is that the lav is up here. You do not want this loop to actually hit the lav mic. So if it's looping up here and it's touching it, it can actually introduce contact noise to it. There is a strain relief right here, and there's a strain relief right there, and a strain relief right there. So any kind of vibrations that come up is going to hit this. It's going to dissipate through here quite a bit by the time it gets all the way up here. Another thing you can do is add a loop in the cable someplace before it even gets to this clip. Now, this in itself, in practice, as long as this loop and everything is not touching the lav itself, it should help quite a bit.
And then tuck the cable under your clothing. We've made a video.
Okay. All right. I know I'm taking this slowly, but here's the thing. By putting it on right like this and then tucking it underneath clothing, you're still showing the lav mic right here. It's still showing. And not only that, Rode happens to say Rode right there in contrasting white letters, which is what we talked about before. I was praising them for on the transmitter. So make that black and you're in business. Now I understand why she's doing this, and she's tucking in the lav cable, and that's good practice. I'm especially happy that she's not putting on the inside of this collar that's way up here, way underneath her throat. The thing is, though, that's extremely high. You don't normally want a lav to be up that high if you can avoid it, because it's going to be underneath the chin. Like you can see her chin comes out here, and the lav, even though it's omnidirectional, it's facing outwards and it's underneath the chin. It's going to make it sound a little bit throaty. So when you get it up really, really high, that's a disadvantage that you have of that. So I would say if you're going to wear it, this is a solution that would work. But if you're concerned about hiding things, might as well also hide this. And you may say, hide it underneath this collar. You can. Keep in mind that a lot of the times we hide microphones inside of ties, neckties, and that is pointing downwards. So if you're going to do that, you can do it underneath there and completely hide the lav. But at that point, what were you going to clip it to? Well, I can tell you right now, clip it to her clothing. Even then, it's still less than ideal. If you're wanting optimum sound quality with a hidden cable, this is a solution that would work. So it's not wrong.
Clothing. We've made a video dedicated to this technique, which you can find in the description below.
Okay.
If you need to hide the mic completely, then there are a couple of things to consider. First,
I question whether or not she's actually using a lav mic on this, because I would suspect that she's actually using a boom mic. Her voice doesn't sound like it's on a lav mic at all. It sounds like it's on a boom. I think she's just wearing it for visuals and to talk about the technique. I can't see a boom shadow or anything, but if I were them, I would be using a boom on her. She sounds much too good to be from a lav mic, in my opinion.
Firstly, positioning. Remember to keep your wireless mic no more than a handspan away from your mouth. Secondly, watch out for friction.
Yeah, those are two good points. First one, self-explanatory. The second one, friction. That's kind of going back to what I was talking to before about the strain relief, the triple strain relief that they have on the inside. Anytime you do any kind of a movement, then two things can happen. You can either have clothing noise that causes a rustle that's audible, and it can also lead to some sort of a movement that is going to actually hit the lav cable and transfer through to the diaphragm and capsule of the microphone. So you definitely want to be aware of this. Now, if you're mounting it to clothing, as long as it is secured and frozen to the clothing, you should be in good shape. If you are using a lav mic and it's mounted to the person, secure it to the person. And by that, I mean, you might want to add a little loop through the cable and then strain relief that as well. So I do have a course on how to lav mic people. And if you're interested in that, it is available for purchase as of the time of this video. I'll put links down in the description, and you can send me an email if you're interested in purchasing it.
You don't want your clothes or skin creating any extra noise. That means picking the right spot and thinking about how to attach the mic. To stick the mic
Tell me that's not duct tape. Tell me that's not duct tape.
to your clothes, the best thing to use is gaffer tape.
Okay. At least it's not duct tape. They had me nervous for a second. It was almost a flashback to some of the early deity lavs that came with a little bit of duct tape. Gaffer tape is aggressive. And if you're not careful, it can actually change the sound of your microphone. Why is that? Well, because if the microphone is up here and you sandwich it too tight, too close, and it's kind of it's like a cupping effect, because got to keep in mind a lavalier microphone is indeed omnidirectional. Depending on the design of the microphone, depending on how you put the tape around it, it can actually have a little bit of effect. Most of the time, if it's an end address microphone, you would have it sticking out from the mount just a little bit, and you're not going to notice it. And it's not going to affect your sound either. The reason I'm usually hesitant to use gaffer tape is because it can leave residue and tear some clothing. There are adhesives you can use, even unmedicated moleskin, non-medicated moleskin. That's a great solution that is very soft on clothing. It removes, it kind of keeps back rubbing type sounds and clothing noise, that kind of thing. There are many accessories sold by Viviana, Ursa. I have videos that go through and walk through the Viviana, the Ursa, the Hide a Mic, and the Bumblebee accessories that they have for lav microphones. And I'll put links to all four of those at the end of this video, so that way it'll be all four on the screen and you can click on any one of them and watch and see what products are available for you to use to hide microphones. Not a huge fan of the gaffer tape. It can be fairly aggressive. And if someone is sweating, it's not necessarily even going to be effective if you put it I mean, it's very easy to have this stuff also, kind of rub off. The adhesive can rub off if it's hot, and that could start to maybe grab chest hair or something like that. Not necessarily on her, but male talent especially.
If it's going on your skin though, make sure you use medical tape.
That's a good note. Okay, so medical tape comes in various different factors. There are, and medical tape is not the equivalent of medical tape. There are multiples available out there. If you're using any kind of medical tape on someone that is sweaty, you need to make sure it's water resistant or repels water. If you are putting it on someone and it's paper based, it can cause crinkling to make it into your lav mic. There's a whole bunch of different factors to consider. Usually a cloth based medical tape is your best bet, but people can be allergic. So be aware of that.
Trust me, your skin will thank you. With lav mics.
Okay, also keep in mind, another note on that is pulling off adhesives to tape. If it's too aggressive or it's too big, it can leave a little red spot. So not a wet spot, a red spot. And it can rip off some hair. So you got to be careful about that. Just be aware that it's not something that you would want to wear without, being concerned about something. Talent shouldn't be having to be made aware of it either.
You will need to create a tape sandwich to keep it secure and prevent.
They are using an old school method right there. Those things, the football, that's old school. I'm smiling looking at this. I don't think I have seen someone use a football on a set in 15 years. Probably 15 years. Yeah, it's probably in the aughts. And not even in the 20 teens. So that's a relic right there. And I'm kind of smiling that they're using it. The other thing about the sandwich, that is a common technique. They use that especially in ENG type thing because it's quick and easy. I've used that even in the regular film industry because it's quick and easy. It's a quick and dirty solution, and it eliminates rubbing. It can also mean that you're securing it to your clothing or your person itself. So it does work on both.
Bent clothing rub. Or you can use.
Whew. Okay. Right after they just got through saying that you want to use medical tape if it's touching the skin, they go and put this, which is basically backwards facing gaffer tape in their example here, backwards facing gaffer tape on the inside collar of a shirt, and then it's going to go against what? The skin. So they're breaking their own rule here. It's kind of shocking that they're doing that. Not a fan of this. Not a fan of this at all.
Or you can use a specially designed lav mounting system like the Rode Invisalab.
Okay. That's a concealer type effect. And yes, they're leaving this. Remember when I was talking about cupping earlier about if you have a microphone and it's going through here and you're putting your hand around it because the actual microphone is recessed a bit in the microphone, that is cupping. And they're cupping a little bit with the microphone here. Now, what this is going to do is, in the case of a lavalier microphone that's omni pattern, it's going to help direct it a little bit more, making it more cardioid or super cardioid, depending on the how much you put it in there. That's also going to affect the proximity effect. It's going to bring up the proximity effect, depending on how far in or out you have it stuck. Because it's, if you're basically cutting out a lot of the pattern to direct it more forward, it's going to have an increased bass response. Maybe an effect you're interested in, but maybe not. So something to be aware of.
If you're using a side address lav mic like the Lavalier 2, consider where the mic capsule is when you're looking for a spot to hide it. And be careful not.
Yeah, that is something also to be aware of here. Notice how big this is. If you're using a side address, you can make this really skinny and long. It doesn't have to be like this. It can, because it technically, we used to even put these kinds of sandwiches. We used to just mount it right over here, just on the cable and going up to the end of the mic. And the reason why is because it would, if you mounted it correctly on the skin, the head would stay back. I mean, in this design, you're putting it on the skin or you're putting it on the clothing, and it's going to hold itself in nicely. So that's not really an issue, but you don't need to have all this extra tape, especially if it's gaffer tape, because that's going to be very much heavy duty. But you can make this like taking one of those pieces of tape, even if it was cut off a little bit more, you could have it going horizontally or vertically in line with the cable and cover more area that way. So that's an option as well.
Not to cover it up when you're securing it with tape. When it comes to clothing, loose clothing is usually your best bet. It gives you more room to play with. For example, along the inside edge of a jacket, using tape to keep
Oh, jeez. Hiding the entire transmitter as a microphone. Okay. We're going to go back and look at this. All right. Look at the way this thing is mounted. Here's one of the disadvantages of using something like this. You want the microphone to be at the edge of your clothing. You want this to be right here at the very edge. And this is now in by about 1/3 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch. That looks like it's 1/4 of an inch, and this might be even with it. So maybe. It's also going to make your outfit bulge out a little bit. So if you turn the wrong way, it could be a revealing mistake. Also keep in mind that shirts have one side that goes in and the other side doesn't go in. So if you put it over here, make sure that side isn't facing camera and revealing the mic pack. And if they were going to be doing this, I would also say cover up your LED lights. That way there's no chance of it being picked up on a reflection, even if it's a revealing mistake and hidden on the inside of black clothing like this, if it's turned toward camera.
Using tape to keep it secure. If you're using a lav, you'll need to secure the cable too. To avoid cable pulling during a shoot, create a tension loop in the lav cable. Another great...
Okay, that was what I was talking about before, about the little loop right there. That's one way to do it. Another way is to actually loop it around and just have it be secured just by the loop itself, as opposed to the center point where the two of them come together. Because if you... come on now, back up. All right. Because if you do it and secure it this way, what you're trying to do by doing this technique is you're trying to eliminate the vibration that goes through any kind of a transfer noise that goes around here. Well, if you're securing it here, this entire loop is not really necessary if you're holding it down so securely with tape. You're not going to really diminish the sound a whole lot more by making this loop. What you would normally do in a loop like this is you would secure it with a smaller piece of tape, and usually up here and or down there. That way the loop is more floating and isolated. You can also put it and secure it from just on one side and over there. It just kind of depends on what you're going for. Using a very big piece of tape right here in the very middle, holding it together there, probably not necessary, but I mean, it does work. Not really necessary, though.
Another great spot to hide a lav is under a lapel or a...
Oh, geez. Okay. She's right, but this is the wrong way to do it. You would want it to be, first of all, you'd want it to be closer. Think about when she drops it. This part of the collar is going to be farther away, which could be revealing. And what you would want to do is, you see this little part right here where it's actually pinched together? That's the area you'd want to hide the lot. People, if they look at that, if they saw this little microphone and it's hidden right there, that's where it's going to be least noticeable. And that means that you're going to have to use a lot smaller piece of tape. And this technique isn't even going to be the one that you would really want to use for that. You'd want to go more in line with it. And when you sandwich it in there, maybe even use something that's not a tape-based thing. Just use a piece of snot tape, Joe Sticky stuff, the Ursa tape, sticky, something like that. Better solution all around. These are kind of old techniques that they're going over. Not to be rude or anything like that, but Rick Veers, who has shown up in many of Rhodes' old school videos, he does have the what was it called? The Lav Mic playbook or something like that. I forgot what it's called, but you know what? I'll put a graphic up there so you can see what the thing is called. But he did talk about lav micing at some point in that, and gave some examples. And he's also taught some things on their channel that probably are related to this kind of a thing. So yeah, I mean, these are old techniques.
Shirt collar. For tighter outfits, look for small gaps, like along a neckline.
Again,
or
putting it directly against the skin.
Clothing noise is a problem.
Oh, wait a second. Hold on a second. Talk backwards. Okay, come on now. Show me the thing. Okay, one thing you got to be careful of is look at how this is pinching. The microphone that they put on secure to the clothes, the rest of the clothing doesn't do that, but there is a pinch right there that comes straight up from the edge of where they stuck this to there. Again, this kind of tape is extremely aggressive. You can see right there that is extremely aggressive in their taping solution here. So the whole idea behind using something like this on a collar, you would hope that the collar has like double layers of thickness to it. But if not, like this shirt, be very careful not to make a wrinkle that's going to be visible.
And if clothing noise is a problem, you might need to attach the mic directly to your skin. Just be careful.
Going back to what she was saying earlier. So again,
if you're wearing any accessories like a hat, beanie, or scarf, you could hide the mic under one of these options.
That's correct.
Just make sure it's secure and safe from any friction.
And make sure it's also closer to the edge of the microphone. The microphone is closer to the edge of the hat or whatever itself. It doesn't need to be poking out, but it can be closer to the edge. Because if it's too far deep, especially with a hat like a beanie that has too many layers of thickness to it, that's a thick beanie that she just showed. And if you have a thick, like this thing here, it's first of all, it's like double layers, and then it's doubled over there, so it's like 4 layers of thickness. If you have a lav mic that's underneath that, that's a lot that it has to go through. Now, if you are wearing a hat like this, there could be increased wind noise out there, in which case you might appreciate having all that. That is something to consider as well. But still, I mean, just be aware it's going to muffle if it's that far deep.
Secure and safe from any friction. Remember, your wireless mic will always sound better out in the open.
That's right. Okay, so, well, you know what? I thought the video was over.
So consider if hiding it is really necessary for what you're shooting. And that's it, guys. Hopefully
Okay, so that's it. Hopefully this video helps, that kind of thing. So some pretty good techniques in there, even if they're a bit outdated. Rode, work on getting some current techniques out there in your videos. But, hey, they're not bad techniques. They're just, they're still going to work fine for you. And one thing that they didn't explain is how to make the football. But, hey, I'm not going to judge. I'm just going to watch the video and react to it the way it is. Again, I have a live course that talks all about different ways of laving people. If you are interested, I will put the link down in the description. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Sound Speeds, where we will do more videos like this in the future, more reaction videos. And as always, we will bring you more sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.